Hey Rex, what the hell is that? Carter Reed squinted through the windshield, rain pelting hard against the glass like the sky was trying to break in. The old Ford pickup rumbled along the narrow forest road, headlights slicing through thick sheets of sleet and fog. The German Shepherd in the passenger seat sat upright, ears perked, body tense. That alone was enough to make Carter's gut tighten. Rex didn't spook easy. The dog growled low. Okay, easy boy, Carter muttered, slowing the truck. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. There, just off the roadside curve, down a shallow embankment, metal gleamed under the moonlight. Twisted, crumpled. It was a car, or what was left of one. Damn. Carter pulled to the shoulder, threw the gear into park, and grabbed his flashlight. Rex was already whining, pawing at the door. Let's go, Carter said, opening the door into the freezing wind. Snow mixed with rain slashed across his face. Boots crunching into icy gravel, he jogged toward the wreck. Rex bounded ahead. As they neared, Carter's heart dropped. The vehicle, a sleek black sports car, was nearly split in two against a pine tree. Steam hissed from the shattered hood. Glass and blood glittered across the snow. He shined the flashlight inside. A woman, mid-30s maybe. Blonde hair darkened with blood, arms slumped awkwardly across her chest. She was barely conscious, lips moving in fragments. Carter yanked the door open. It creaked, stuck, then groaned wide. "Ma'am, can you hear me? You're gonna be okay, stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. She blinked up at him, pupils dilated. Then her lips moved. Don't trust anyone in uniform." Carter froze. "What did you say?" But her eyes rolled back. She passed out. Rex barked sharply and pawed at the back seat. Carter reached in, checking her pulse. Weak, but there. Jesus. He looked around. No other cars. No cell signal. No time. No one else was gonna come. He scooped her into his arms, light, limp, but still warm. "Come on, Rex," he called. The dog stayed close, circling the car once, then trotting beside Carter back to the truck. He laid her across the bench seat, Rex curling protectively at her feet, refusing to look away from her face. By the time they reached the house, it was past midnight. Their cabin was tucked deep in Millersville's backwoods, Colorado foothills, isolated, quiet, surrounded by pines and the sharp smell of firewood and snow. Inside, Carter laid the woman gently on the couch, covering her with a wool blanket. He tossed more logs into the stove and turned up the propane heater. Rex refused to leave her side. Jade, Carter's 8-year-old daughter, rubbed her eyes as she wandered into the living room. "Daddy? Why's Rex barking?" "Hey, sweet pea." Carter knelt, brushing her curly hair back. "We found someone hurt. She's sleeping now, okay?" Jade tiptoed over, peered at the stranger on their couch. "Is she a princess?" Carter chuckled, but there was unease in his smile. "No, baby, but she might need our help like one." He stood up, took off his wet coat, and glanced down. The woman was shivering, her lips blue. Carter grabbed a towel, dried her face, then noticed something. A chain around her neck, tucked under her collar. He pulled it free. A metallic tag, embedded chip, military grade. Not something your average Wall Street exec wore. He flipped it over. One word. E. Grant. His breath caught. Elise Grant. CEO of Grant Industries. Missing since last week. Headlines had called it a kidnapping. Rumors swirled about fraud, whistleblowing, offshore money. FBI said she vanished. No leads. And now she was on his couch, mumbling warnings about uniforms, bleeding from the head. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. Rex whimpered again. The dog sat inches from her, tail curled around his feet. Alert but not aggressive, protective, like he knew her. Carter frowned. "Rex, what's going on with you?" The dog blinked at him once, then returned to staring at the woman, watching, waiting. Hours later, Carter sat in the kitchen, staring at the ID tag. The snow hadn't stopped. The phone line was still dead. Cell signal didn't exist this far up the mountain. He felt a presence and turned. Elise was away, barely standing, hand on the wall. Her voice was raspy. "Where am I?" "You're safe," Carter said, standing slowly. "You crashed. I found you. You've been out for hours." Her eyes darted around the room. "Where's my bag?" "Back at the wreck. I couldn't." He hesitated. "You said something. About uniforms. About not trusting them. Why?" Her face shut down. Cold. Closed. "Thank you. But I need to leave. You're not going anywhere in that storm, he said flatly. Besides, you're bleeding, likely concussed. You're lucky to be alive. She wobbled. Carter reached out instinctively. She flinched. Don't touch me. Lady, I'm not your enemy. You don't know who my enemies are. Carter held her gaze. Silence stretched. Then, from the floor, Rex stood and walked slowly toward her. He sat at her feet, looked up. Elise's breath caught. Her fingers touched his fur. Recognition flickered in her eyes. Rex, she whispered. You know him? Carter asked, stunned. She nodded. Tears welled in her eyes. He belonged to my husband. He was K9, died 2 years ago. The dog vanished after the funeral, I thought. Her voice broke. Carter swallowed. That explains why he reacted that way. Elise sank to the couch. Rex climbed beside her, resting his head on her lap. I'm not safe here, she whispered. And neither are you. Carter stood silent, arms crossed, heart hammering. Outside, the wind howled like something ancient trying to claw its way inside. And for the first time in years, he realized. The quiet life he built in the woods was about to be shattered. Carter stood at the window, arms crossed, staring out into the snow-laced darkness. The wind screamed through the trees like it carried a warning only the mountains could understand. Behind him, the crackle of fire was the only sound aside from Rex's occasional sigh and the soft rustling of blankets on the couch. Elise hadn't spoken again since she sat down. She clutched the dog tag under her shirt like it was a lifeline. Her body curled defensively, eyes closed but restless. Carter didn't need to be told. She was hiding. From what? He still didn't know. But everything about her, the urgency in her whisper, the way she scanned the room for exits, the flinch when he moved too fast told him the danger wasn't just outside. It was trailing her like a shadow. The next morning came slow and gray. Snow buried the world in silence. Carter brewed a pot of coffee, the scent filling the small cabin. Jade sat at the kitchen table, legs swinging, coloring quietly. Elise hadn't left the couch. Rex stayed with her, like some soldier standing post. Carter set a mug near her. Coffee. No cream, sorry. You're in the wrong tax bracket for luxuries up here. Her eyes opened slowly. She stared at the mug, then up at him. I wasn't supposed to survive. That wreck? He asked. She shook her head. That's just the latest attempt. Carter leaned against the counter, arms folded. Look, I don't care who you are. I'm not the curious type. But you need to tell me if my daughter's in danger. Elise sat up, the blanket sliding off her shoulders. You're already in danger, just by helping me. Her voice was low, even. You don't have to know the details. The less you know, the longer you stay safe. Carter scoffed. Lady, I fought in 2 tours overseas, pulled bodies out of hurricanes and cleaned blood off high school gym floors as a janitor when no one else would. Safe's never been a guarantee, so try me. She studied him a long moment. Her eyes softened just slightly. Do you know what it feels like to scream the truth and have no one listen? Carter nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. She took a sip of coffee. Her hands shook. I blew the whistle on someone high up. Grant Industries, my own company. A defense contract fraud that could have put American soldiers in the field with faulty equipment. Billions stolen, covered up. When I refused to stay quiet, people started dying. My husband first, then my bodyguard, then my lawyer. They made it look clean, natural, accidental. I knew I was next. Carter's jaw tightened. And the uniforms? She glanced out the window. Some of them are in it. I don't know who to trust anymore. Carter let the silence hang. Outside, the snow was starting to melt off the trees, but the cold lingered like unfinished business. Later that afternoon, Jade ran to Carter with her small red coat barely zipped. Daddy, that black SUV came back. Carter's blood froze. He stepped outside, scanning the woods. No tire tracks, no engine sounds, just the forest. But Rex was growling again. Inside, now, he said. He watched the tree line, hand unconsciously resting near the drawer where he kept the old service pistol. That night, they locked all the doors. Carter placed extra logs near the stove. Elise sat by the fire, her fingers twitching with nerves. They're watching, I know it. Carter didn't argue. What do they want? He asked. To silence me, she said simply. Permanently. I sent encrypted files to a journalist, but I think they intercepted it. Or worse, someone close to me betrayed me. She paused, then added, "You have to let me leave. I won't drag your family into this." Carter stared at her. Then he looked at Jade, asleep in the next room, and at Rex, still guarding. "You're already here," he said. "We ride this out together." That night, Carter couldn't sleep. Dreams of desert firefights blurred with scenes of burning cars and snow-covered trails. Around 3 a.m., he heard movement, not from inside but outside, near the porch. He grabbed the shotgun. Quietly, he moved to the window. A figure, slim, fast. Watching the house, Carter aimed. But then the figure turned and ran, gone into the trees. The next morning they found footprints around the back of the cabin. Too many, not just one person. Elise examined the pattern and muttered, "They're testing you, seeing how you respond, preparing for something bigger." Carter grabbed his coat. "We need to be ready." Over the next 2 days they laid low. Carter set up cameras, old hunting cams from his trail scouting days. They trained Rex on new perimeter routes. Elise helped cook, taught Jade how to braid a survival cord into bracelets. Slowly, she became less of a stranger. Her guard lowered, if only a little. One evening, Jade handed her a drawing stick, figures of them all standing in the snow, Rex between them. Elise smiled, eyes glistening. "I forgot what it felt like to be safe, even for a minute," she said. Carter replied, "It's not safe, but it's something." "You know," she said softly, "my husband always believed justice was a slow, quiet storm. It starts with one voice, then it echoes." Carter stared into the fire. "Then maybe it's time to echo louder." Outside, wind stirred again, but this time it didn't feel like a storm. It felt like a warning, and the echo had already begun. "Rex hasn't left that window since last night," Carter murmured, setting a mug of tea down beside Elise. She sat curled on the old couch, eyes locked on the tree line outside, muscles taut like a spring about to snap. "He's sensing something. He always knows before we do," she said, her voice quiet but edged with steel. The morning light barely pierced the frost on the window, casting the room in a gray, muted glow. Snow still clung to the porch, though it had thinned. The forest was alive with whispers of wind, of branches shifting, of people moving where they shouldn't be. Carter noticed Rex's hackles were up. That wasn't nothing. Jade stayed in her room most of the day, reading books beneath a blanket fort. Elise had taken to helping with chores, silently folding laundry with the precision of someone trained to survive, not relax. She avoided mirrors, refused to wear anything that fit her too well. Layers, always layers, like she needed them for protection. That afternoon, Carter found her staring at the back wall, where his old medals were nailed beside a faded photograph of him in uniform. "I thought I recognized the way you moved," she said without turning. "You were Army?" "Rescue unit," he replied, keeping his tone even. "Deployed twice. Medically discharged after a bad fall. The VA still sends holiday cards, though." "You saved lives," she said. "I used to think that meant something." Carter approached her slowly. "It still does, even if nobody sees it." She turned. Her eyes were glassy, jaw tight. "They killed my husband in broad daylight. A man in uniform did it. Then they told the news it was an overdose." "What did he do?" Carter asked. "He told me to trust my instincts, and then he sent me the files, classified contracts, internal memos, names. One of them was a deputy director at Homeland. The moment he hit send, he was marked." Carter whistled low. "And now they're making sure it doesn't go any further." She nodded, fingers gripping her sleeves. "I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to stop a train from crashing. Turns out I was on the tracks the whole time." Later that night, while checking the trail cams, Carter froze. He rewound the footage twice. At 3:17 a.m., 3 men moved along the southern ridge. Black gear, thermal scopes, no insignia. One paused and looked straight into the lens. Then they vanished into the brush. "They know we're here," he muttered. He didn't tell Elisa. Not yet. He needed a plan first. The next day, Carter drove into town under the pretense of buying propane. He kept his head down, baseball cap pulled low, scanning every reflection. Millersville was small, familiar, too familiar. People noticed when someone like Carter showed up twice in a week. At the hardware store, the clerk, a Vietnam vet named Bill, frowned at him. "You okay, son?" "Fine," Carter lied. "Just stocking up." Storm might roll in again. Bill nodded but didn't look convinced. On his way out, Carter saw a black SUV parked near the diner. Federal plates, tinted windows. He kept walking. On instinct, he swung by the library, logged into one of the old computers, and opened a secure browser. He typed slowly. What happens when a federal whistleblower disappears? A list of links popped up, some redacted, some broken, but just one was live. A blog post dated 4 days ago, written under an alias. It referenced a missing CEO, leaked documents, and a dog trained in bomb detection with a matching serial number to Rex. At the bottom was a message. If you found her, you're not safe. They're coming for the dog too, he remembers. Carter logged out, drove home without stopping. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He got back to the cabin just before dusk. Elise met him at the door, Rex close behind. "What is it?" she asked. "You're pale. We have less time than I thought," he said. "And apparently, the dog's a liability too." "He's not just a dog," she whispered. "He's the last proof my husband existed." That night, while Jade slept soundly upstairs, Carter and Elise sat by the fire, maps and tools spread across the floor. "If we hike west," he said, tracing a path, "there's a ranger station 20 miles out. It's unmanned most of the winter, but they have an emergency beacon. We get there, we can send a signal, untraceable, short burst. Maybe someone outside the system can help." "What about your daughter?" "She stays here. Safe." "She won't be safe once they breach the line," Elise said sharply. "They'll tear through this place." "You know it." Carter didn't speak. Then he looked at Rex. The dog's eyes met his, unwavering, like he understood everything. "Then we don't run," Carter said. "We make a stand, here, together, in." In the silence that followed, Elise reached into her coat and pulled out a flash drive. She handed it to him. "This is everything, what they're after. If I don't make it, you take this to the press. Don't go to the cops. Don't go to anyone with a badge. Use the names on the last page. They're the only ones I trust." Carter took it, heavy for something so small. "You better live," he said, "because I'm not great at being anyone's hero." She smiled for the first time, a real one, tired, sad, but real. "You already are. You just don't see it." Outside, the trees creaked in the wind. Somewhere in the dark, the snow shifted, and something watched. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. At precisely 2:34 a.m., the first sound came a subtle metallic click from somewhere beyond the woodshed. Carter sat upright on the living room floor, where he drifted off while cleaning and reassembling his father's old Winchester rifle. Rex was already up, ears perked, growling low in his throat. A second sound followed, lighter, a step, snow compressing under weight. Carter crossed the room in silence, motioned for Elise to stay with Jade, and positioned himself at the front door, shotgun loaded. He held his breath. Rex growled again, this time sharper. Someone was on the porch. Carter peeked through the curtain, heart hammering. A silhouette stood near the porch's edge, unmoving, scanning the tree line like it was searching for something or someone else. Carter's finger hovered on the trigger, but he didn't fire. Whoever it was didn't try to break in. They turned and walked off into the trees, disappearing as quickly as they'd arrived. "Recon," Elise said from behind him. "They're watching patterns, timing our movements. They're not here to grab me yet. They're preparing." "Then let's ruin their prep," Carter said. By morning, the snow had hardened into ice sheets across the trail. Carter and Elise worked together without saying much, every movement efficient, practiced. She wasn't just a CEO, she was trained. He'd seen the way she handled the weight of a pistol, the way she cut corners in a room, eyes always watching exits. "You had field experience," Carter noted, while checking the perimeter cams. "Defense Division," Elise replied, cinching her coat. "Before the boardroom, I ran logistics for military contractors in conflict zones. Learned the rules the hard way, including when the rules are lies." Carter nodded. "Explains why you haven't cracked yet." She smiled faintly. "I crack quietly, just not in front of others." Later that day, Carter took Jade to the nearby lake trail under the guise of getting firewood. Elise had insisted they keep routines as normal as possible, especially for the girl. But Carter needed to talk without walls. While Jade chased snowflakes with Rex, Carter whispered, "There's another route through the ravine west of here. If things go south, take her. The pack's already loaded. Elise's eyes flicked toward Jade. She won't leave without you. She might have to, Carter said, his voice tightening. I won't let her grow up thinking silence is safety. Elise reached into her coat and passed him a small radio encrypted military grade. Channel 7. Only when it's life or death. Otherwise, no signals. They're scanning. Understood. That night, the wind carried voices. Not clear, just murmurs. But they weren't from the house. Carter and Rex patrolled the perimeter. At the edge of the property, near the old fence, Rex stopped, nose twitching. Then he whimpered. What is it, boy? Carter whispered. A second later, a red laser dot appeared on Rex's chest. Carter threw himself over the dog as a shot cracked through the woods. It hit a tree behind them, bark exploding like shrapnel. Back, Carter shouted. They sprinted for the house, ducking low, gunfire echoing behind them. Elise was already pulling Jade into the crawl space beneath the kitchen. Carter slammed the back door shut, tossed the latch, and cut the lights. We're not dealing with amateurs, he said, panting. They're using suppressed fire, could be former spec ops. Elise's face was pale, but steady. Then it's time we stop thinking like civilians. Together they moved through the house, reinforcing windows, checking blind spots. Rex remained at the door, guarding, growling with purpose. Carter passed Elise his last flare. If they breach, fire it toward the ridge. It'll blind night scopes. What about you? I'll keep them busy. I've got a few tricks from Afghanistan they haven't seen. Around 3 a.m., silence returned. No more gunfire. No more movement. Just the eerie hum of a retreat. Carter knew better. They were regrouping. We have till nightfall, Elise said, maybe less. That morning, Carter brought out an old CB radio hidden under the floorboards. I know a guy, not a cop, ex-Intel, owes me a favor from New Orleans. He might get us an extraction. Elise nodded. We send him the flash drive. Ask nothing more. If it leaks, they lose control of the narrative. Carter hesitated. You trust him? No, she said, but I trust the truth more than silence. Aye. By midday, a snowmobile arrived on the edge of the property unmanned. Likely a drone drop. Inside was a package, no label. Carter opened it carefully. Inside, a burner phone, 3 vials labeled CX-23 in military script, and a note. You have until Sunday, then we clean the slate. Biochem, Elise whispered, eyes narrowing. They're not just silencing, they're planning a test run. Carter stared at the vials. This isn't just about a whistleblower. This is containment. Elise looked up, her expression cold, focused. We go live. Now? Carter asked. Tonight. We don't wait for backup. We take the risk and get the files out. We show the world. Carter nodded slowly. Then let's remind them what truth feels like when it hits back. As night fell, the cabin turned into a war room. Elise prepared the live stream setup, masking her face, disguising her voice, routing through multiple satellites. Carter positioned flares, tripwires, and fallback paths. Jade slept upstairs, oblivious to the firestorm outside her window. At exactly 10:15 p.m., Elise hit the broadcast button. Her voice came through, scrambled but clear. My name is not important. What I have is, these files show the theft of government funds, the murder of American citizens, and a plan to test biological agents on domestic soil. They tried to silence me, but silence ends now. As the feed went live, Carter stood watch, gun ready, heart steady. Somewhere out there, the people who had tried to erase them were watching. But now the world was watching too. And in that moment, as snow began to fall again, Carter realized something else. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. Quiet, precise, but war all the same. And he'd be damned if they lost. The video had only been live for 47 minutes, but the impact was immediate. Comments flooded in, anonymous viewers demanding more proof, others crying conspiracy. A few claimed they knew this woman's voice. One, in all caps, shouted, "I knew Elise Raymond wasn't dead." Carter paced, eyes darting between the laptop screen and the darkened forest beyond the windows. Elise remained seated, motionless, her face back in the shadows after the live stream. Her breathing was shallow, but even. She looked stronger somehow, not because the danger had passed, but because it hadn't. She was built for this. That video just painted a target on this whole damn mountain, Carter muttered. We already had a target, Elise replied quietly. Now we have leverage. Carter glanced at Rex, who lay alert near the front door, ears trained toward the woods. The wind howled, but Carter could hear something beneath it, a frequency too low to describe, like pressure shifting. They're coming, he said. Elise didn't argue. She stood and checked the emergency pack they'd prepared. Ammunition, a backup hard drive, Jade's inhaler, matches. We can't outrun them forever, Carter added. Number, but we don't have to. We just have to last long enough. At dawn, a drone buzzed low over the treetops, circling the cabin 3 times before veering off westward. It didn't fire. It didn't drop anything. But it saw them. It saw everything. By 9 a.m., the burner phone rang once, no caller ID, and then died, screen black. They're shutting down communications, Elise said, setting it aside. They'll jam satellite soon, maybe scramble GPS. Carter checked the gas lines, the solar batteries, the generator backup. Then we go analog, he said. We force them into our arena. Elise looked at him sideways. And what arena is that? The kind where one good man and one angry woman hold a cabin like it's the Alamo. They didn't eat breakfast. There was no appetite, just tension, the kind that lived in the marrow. Carter handed Jade her sketchbook and whispered gently, You stay close to Rex, sweetheart, no matter what. He'll protect you. Jade looked at him, confused but trusting. Are you going away? Just stepping outside for a while, he lied. We're going to play a quiet game today. No noise, no lights unless I say so. She nodded, hugged him, and disappeared into the back room with Rex close behind. Elise and Carter suited up. He wore the same flannel he'd worn for years, now reinforced with Kevlar beneath. She dressed in black thermal layers, a scarf pulled high over her face. Her eyes, though, remained bare, focused. This won't be a traditional assault, she said. They won't storm the place. They'll cut power, wait for panic, force a mistake. Carter loaded the last shell into his shotgun. Then let's not give them any. They set traps along the north and west ridges, tripwires, flares, sound alarms. Carter's father had been a survivalist, borderline paranoid. But today, that paranoia was saving lives. Around noon, Rex let out a low, sharp bark. A shadow moved between trees, too fast for any deer. Then another, figures in winter camouflage, nearly invisible. Elise whispered. 3, man scout team, maybe more behind. Carter steadied his breath. How far? 70 yards, closing. They waited. The scout team approached the perimeter, one man pausing to examine a tripwire. He raised his hand. Too late. The wire triggered a flare blinding white light and a high-pitched screech. One of the men cursed, stumbled back into a net trap Carter had rigged from old fishing line. He hit the ground hard. The other 2 ducked and ran into the trees. They're not trained for this terrain, Carter muttered, but they'll adapt. So will we, Elise replied. The rest of the afternoon passed in relative silence, but not peace. The forest felt alive, not with nature but with waiting. The kind of waiting that came before storms or funerals. Jade napped, Rex lying protectively beside her. Carter and Elise rotated shifts. Every half hour, they swapped watch posts, checked gear, recounted ammo. We can't stay here, Carter said around 4:30. We'll run out of food, fuel, options. That's the point, Elise said. They don't want to kill me. Not yet. They want to erase the truth first. And if they can't, she looked out at the snowy woods, then they erase everyone around it. As dusk settled, the woods grew quiet, too quiet. Carter's stomach twisted. Then a crash. Not close, distant, controlled. A tree falling. No, a distraction. He turned, and before he could speak, the southern window shattered. Smoke canisters rolled inside, hissing. Go, he shouted, pulling Jade and Rex to the basement stairwell. Elise grabbed the hard drive, the gun, and followed. Upstairs, footsteps thundered. Carter slammed the basement hatch shut, just as the front door burst open. Below ground, air was thin. The crawlspace wasn't built for more than storage, but it had oxygen vents and reinforced walls. Carter's father had built it in 2084, fearing nuclear fallout. We wait 30, he whispered. No movement, no breathing. They listened. Above them, heavy boots scraped across hardwood, voices muffled, distorted by masks. Someone barked orders. Cabinets opened. Furniture overturned. Then silence. Then a voice. Clear. Carter waited 10 more minutes. Then 5. Then 2. "They'll leave someone behind," Elise said. "A tail." Carter nodded. "We flush him out." With Jade and Rex safe below, Carter and Elise emerged like shadows. One man remained behind, crouched near the generator, fiddling with controls. Carter crept up behind, silent as snowfall, and struck with the butt of his rifle. The man crumpled. They dragged him inside, stripped the mask. His face was young, maybe 22, pale, shaking. "He's not military," Elise whispered. "Private contractor, Merc." "He talk?" Carter asked. "Let's find out." She knelt beside the boy and murmured, "You don't want to be part of this. You don't want to die for men who'll deny you ever existed." He blinked rapidly, swallowed, then whispered, "They said if she speaks again, they'll gas the city." Carter froze. "What city?" "Baltimore, Sunday night, stadium crowd. Blame it on foreign radicals. Sell the cure, triple stock." Elise stood slowly, her hands clenched, her face unreadable. "Then we don't run," she said. "We go loud, and we go now." Carter nodded once. There was no more hiding, no more hesitation. There was only one path left, forward, into the fire. "You're saying they're planning to gas a stadium?" Carter's voice was low but tight, each syllable wrapped in disbelief and fury. The young mercenary nodded, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. "Sunday night, national anthem, right before kickoff. They've got the bioagent already in the ventilation system. They call it Project Halo." Elise stood utterly still, her shadow cast long across the floor. She didn't blink. "How many people are involved?" she asked. "Hundreds, maybe more. It's all tiered, compartmentalized. No one knows the full plan but the top brass. I'm just muscle." Carter didn't care about the boy's role. "Who hired you?" "Novastrat. Subcontracted by Teradyne Security. They said we were protecting assets. I didn't sign up for murder." "N." Elise turned away, hands on her hips, staring at nothing. Her voice trembled for the first time. "My husband tried to expose this. That's why they killed him. That's why they burned everything, his files, his name, even his grave." Carter looked at her, not just as a fugitive or a stranger anymore, but as a soldier who had seen too much and had everything taken. "We can't stop that attack from here," he said. "We need to get this to someone who still gives a damn." Elise nodded slowly. "And we only have 2 days." The basement was no longer safe. They knew that. By morning, they'd be triangulated, and the next wave wouldn't be scouts, it would be a clean sweep. Carter knew the trails better than anyone. There was a fire road that ran behind the ridge, covered by trees and invisible from drones. It would get them to a decommissioned ranger station with an old landline still wired into county emergency services. If they were lucky, they could piggyback off the line and reach someone before it was cut. By 3 a.m., they were moving. Carter carried Jade in his arms, bundled in a thick quilt. Rex padded ahead, ears high, tail low. Elise took the rear, rifle slung, eyes never stopping. The mercenary, bound and gagged, was tied to a sled made from a tarp and rope. "You sure about dragging him along?" Carter asked. "He's leverage," Elise said. "We may need a witness." "Or a hostage," Carter muttered. "Sam de France tonight." Snow had begun to fall again, light and quiet, the kind that whispered. Each step through the woods felt like trespassing in sacred ground. At one point, Jade whispered, "Daddy, is this a game?" Carter smiled despite the ache in his chest. "Kind of, honey. It's the kind we win together." They made it to the ranger station just before dawn. It was colder inside than outside, but it had walls and a roof. Carter broke open a locked cabinet and found emergency flares, a radio too rusted to use, and miracle of miracles, a backup diesel generator. He poured in fuel from a red canister mounted on the wall, and after 3 tries, the engine sputtered to life. Weak lights flickered. The landline hummed. "Thank God," Elise whispered. She dialed a number, then another. On the third, someone answered. "Baltimore Tribune tip line," said a gruff voice. Elise didn't hesitate. "Patch me through to editor Laura Mencken. Tell her it's ER from Unit 6. She'll know." A pause. Then, "That's not funny. That woman's dead. Tell her I'm not. Tell her I have the proof." Another long silence. Then the voice said, Stay on the line. It took 30 minutes, but eventually, a woman's voice came on. Older, unsure, but with steel underneath. Elise? Laura, Elise said, her voice softening for the first time since Carter met her. They lied. Everything we thought, they made it worse. Where are you? Off-grid. For now, but listen carefully. They're planning an attack. Biological. Baltimore Stadium, Sunday night. Project Halo. There was a pause. Then Mencken said, I'll get this to the DOJ, but you know they're listening. If this is real, they'll come for you hard. They already are. When the call ended, Elise let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. It's in motion, she said. Now we just survive long enough to make it stick. But survival wasn't guaranteed. By noon, they saw the first signs. A small drone hovered near the tree line before zipping back. Then tire tracks near the access road. Carter tightened every window, every door, set up flare traps again. They're not just hunting now, he said. They're corralling. Elise nodded. They'll want to finish this clean. No noise, no witnesses. Carter glanced at Jade, who was quietly coloring a picture of Rex in the corner. Then we give them what they don't want. That night, they made a decoy. Carter stuffed a set of pillows and jackets into a sleeping bag, laid it on the cot near the main window. Elise rigged the propane tank with a wire trigger. If someone opened the door and shot blindly, it would detonate the gas line enough to startle, maybe wound. We can't stay here, Carter said again. Even with the story out, they'll try to bury us, literally. Then we make it harder for them. At 3 a.m., the first shot rang out. Not at them, but above. A flare, signaling movement. Then silence. Then voices. Go in, someone ordered. 2 on perimeter. Rest clear inside. Carter whispered to Elise. Time. She nodded. Together, they moved through the back crawlspace exit, Rex guiding the way. They circled wide around the station, catching the shape of 6 men moving inside. One stepped on the tripwire. The gas tank exploded. A burst of fire and shouts followed. Carter and Elise didn't wait. They sprinted down the ridge, Jade on Carter's back, Rex leading. Behind them, chaos. But not enough to kill, just enough to confuse, to delay. They didn't need to win tonight. They just needed to last until morning. When the sun broke through the trees, Carter looked up. Helicopters, civilian markings, news crews. One had a banner, Truth will not be silenced. Elise stared at it, tears in her eyes. Laura got through, she said. Carter smiled. Then maybe we've got a shot after all. But they both knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The truth was loose. But now, so was the fury. They're here for the story, not us, Elise murmured as the rotor blades chopped the cold morning air. Carter kept his eyes on the tree line, scanning for movement that didn't belong to the press. Let's not assume that just yet, he replied, voice tight. The first news chopper landed 50 yards from the ranger station's burnt-out shell. Reporters and windbreakers emerged with cameras already rolling. One of them, a silver-haired woman with hard eyes and calm steps, headed straight toward them. Elise Raymond, she asked. You've stirred up a hornet's nest. Elise nodded. And you must be Laura Mencken. Laura didn't smile. They tried to intercept our pilot. We had to fly low over a logging trail. I have 15 minutes before the sky's no longer safe. She glanced at Carter. Is the drive still intact? Carter handed her the black case wrapped in thermal tape. Encrypted 3 ways. It includes the original Project Halo documents, timestamps, and the pre-recorded confession from her husband before he died. Laura's jaw clenched. If even half this is true, this isn't a scandal. It's an act of war against civilians. It's all true, Elise said simply. Rex growled softly, nose to the wind. Carter noticed Jade stiffen against his side. What is it, boy? He whispered. Rex stepped forward, tail rigid. Behind the distant press crew, a second SUV approached blacked-out windows, no markings. Laura followed his gaze. That's not one of ours. Time to move, Carter said. But Elise didn't. She stared at the vehicle, something behind her eyes sharpening like steel through fog. That plate, she whispered. That's Graham's old car. It was supposed to be totaled. Carter narrowed his eyes. Graham was my brother, and my best friend. He died a year before my husband. They said it was a drunk driving accident. And now his car shows up at our rendezvous. No one's dead in their stories, Carter. They just get erased. Elise stepped in front of Laura, shielding her. "We'll buy you time. Get that footage to your people." Laura hesitated. "I have 2 decoy drones on standby. I'll use them to scramble any trace of my route." "Go," Carter said. "We'll handle this." As Laura ducked back toward her crew, Elise and Carter retreated behind a fallen tree near the ridge, the SUV parked with deliberate calm. 2 figures stepped out, men in gray tactical gear, clean-shaven, blank-eyed. Government? Corporate? Doesn't matter, Carter thought. They were killers, not negotiators. "You're outnumbered," one called, voice amplified by a shoulder mic. "You're outgunned. Surrender the woman and the child, and we'll consider leniency." Carter laughed quietly. "They always say that like they've earned trust. They never plan on anyone calling their bluff," Elise replied. A single crack rang out Elise's shot, caught the lead man in the shoulder, spinning him backward. The second dove for cover. Rex barked and sprinted left, drawing fire away from the tree line. Carter flanked low, using the ridge for cover, and fired at the SUV's tires. One exploded, sending the vehicle tilting. "That's for Graham," Elise whispered. From the woods, more movement, at least 4 more agents. "Back up," Carter muttered. "We're not going to win this firefight." "We don't need to win," Elise said. "We need to disappear." She grabbed his wrist and pointed east. "There's an old mine shaft less than a mile that way, covered by brush. It connects to the old rail system. We can lose them underground." "You sure it's still stable?" "Stable enough for ghosts," Carter nodded. "Go get Jade." They ran. Not away from the danger, but into shadow. The old mine shaft looked like a storybook warning. Broken beams, rusted tracks, a gaping mouth into earth. Jade clung to Rex's collar, trusting the dog more than the darkness. "It's like a secret cave," she whispered. "Exactly that," Carter said, guiding her inside. They lit 2 oil lanterns and stepped into the past. The tunnel narrowed and dropped, then opened into a cavernous shaft where water trickled from above and the air smelled of rust and old sorrow. "This place hasn't seen light in 50 years, Elise murmured. "Perfect." Back above, the agents found only blood on the ground and burned tire marks. The SUV was still smoldering. The press had fled. One man picked up a bullet casing and frowned. "Military grade. Who are we really chasing?" The leader, a man in a tan overcoat, didn't answer. He just stared at the broken trees and whispered, "The past, and it's not staying buried." Inside the mine, Carter found an old workbench and a dusty box marked Gibson Mining, 1963. Inside, maps, flares, a backup lantern, and a sealed envelope. "To anyone who makes it this far," the note read. "We tried to warn them. We failed. Don't let the darkness win again." Elise read the words aloud and nodded. "We're not the first, but maybe we'll be the last who stay silent." Carter set the flare down beside her. "Then let's make noise." For the next 3 hours, they followed the old tracks, crawling through parts, running through others. At one point, the ceiling collapsed 30 yards behind them, either a structural shift or a charge detonated from above. Either way, they were being watched. Jade fell asleep against Carter's back again, her tiny breaths a reminder of everything at stake. Elise moved like a ghost, glancing behind her every few steps, eyes never resting. Finally, the tunnel opened into a freight corridor long abandoned but wired with ancient power lines. At the far end, daylight. "That's the edge of the freight yard near Millston," Carter said. "There's a train museum 2 blocks from there. Tourist trap, but it has Wi-Fi, security cameras, and a crowd. Perfect cover," Elise said. They emerged at dusk, clothes covered in soot and snow, eyes burning from the coal dust. Rex led them into town without drawing attention. Tourists didn't blink. Just a family on an offbeat trip. No one saw the girl with the backpack containing national secrets. No one noticed the woman who'd once been declared dead. But someone, somewhere, was watching. From a dark van parked behind the museum, a man in a black turtleneck adjusted his earpiece and said into his mic, "They're on foot, eastbound, still together." The voice that replied was cold, amused. "Let them run. There's only one end to this story, and we're writing it." But he was wrong, because for the first time, the pen wasn't in his hand, and those being hunted had learned to write their own ending. The train museum buzzed with the quiet charm of small-town nostalgia. Brass plaques, rusted locomotives, and smiling retirees filled the space like props from another life. No one gave a second glance to Carter, Elise, or Jade as they wove between the display engines and old conductors' uniforms. It felt surreal, like stepping out of war into someone else's memory. "Restrooms by the caboose exhibit," Carter murmured to Jade, who nodded and slipped away with Rex in tow, the dog's ears still alert. Elise scanned the crowd, fingers resting near the small pistol tucked beneath her coat. "Security cams above the ticket booth and in the east wing. Give me 5 minutes and a Wi-Fi signal." Carter nodded. "We'll be by the Pullman car." He watched her walk off, shoulders squared but gaze darting. She was a warrior in a borrowed life, and the weight of it showed in every step. In a corner exhibit titled "Rails and Resistance," Elise ducked behind an old telegraph console and pulled the burner laptop from her sling bag. She'd bought it from a pawn shop outside Ridley Springs 2 weeks ago, scrubbed it, and preloaded it with a clone of the drive's core contents. As the connection loaded, her pulse picked up. For years, she'd fought in silence, hiding from cameras, names, and shadows. But today, she would speak. Her fingers moved fast, uploading the confession video, the lab reports, the roster of ghost employees from the Omega program. She embedded it all into a zip file labeled Project Halo, unredacted, and sent it to 6 independent news outlets, 4 public watchdog groups, and a network of ex-military whistleblowers Graham once trusted. As she hit send, a sense of vertigo gripped her. Not from fear, but release. The truth no longer belonged to her. It was loose now, feral and irreversible. Carter leaned against a railing near the Pullman car, watching a boy ask his grandfather how trains used to work. The old man chuckled, pointing to the crankshaft, explaining patience and weight and timing. Carter found himself thinking about his father gone too young, blue collar to the bone, who taught him to fix things before they broke. He wished Jade could have met him. "She's done it," Elise said, appearing beside him, breath controlled but voice low. "It's out there now. They can't bury it all." "That's the good news," Carter replied. "Bad news is someone's watching us from the parking lot." She didn't flinch. "Black van? Of course. Then it's not over." Jade returned moments later, holding Rex's leash in one hand and a museum brochure in the other. "Dad, this place has a model train with a tiny town inside it. Can we see it?" Carter smiled. "Lead the way, conductor." As they walked, Elise's hand brushed against Carter's. "We need to get off the grid again. They'll trace the upload eventually." "I have a plan," he whispered. "Millston's Community Center holds a town hall tonight. Local judges retiring. Big turnout, big cameras. We go there. You go on record, voice, face, name." Elise hesitated. "That's suicide. Number, that's visibility. After what you just sent out, you vanish again, and they'll paint you as a hoax. You go public, make them blink. I'll handle Jade and cover you from the crowd." She stared at him for a long beat. "You sure?" "I've never been more sure." That evening, the Millston Town Hall filled with folding chairs, plastic pitchers of lemonade, and neighbors dressed in their Sunday best. The retiring judge, an elderly man named Franklin Drury, had served the county for 40 years. His farewell speech was humble, nostalgic, and full of stories about old barns and new laws. Then came the open mic portion, where townsfolk could share their thanks or concerns. Carter nudged Elise. Now or never. Elise took the podium slowly, every eye turning toward her. She wore a simple navy jacket, hair tied back, voice steady. "My name is Elise Raymond. Some of you may have seen reports surfacing online today, videos, documents, evidence of a program called Project Halo. I'm here to confirm it's real. I worked inside it. My husband died exposing it. My brother was silenced for knowing too much, and I've been hunted ever since." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Franklin Drury straightened in his seat. Elise continued. "The people behind Halo were testing biologics on minority populations, veterans, and prisoners without consent. I tried to stop it. I was declared dead. But I'm standing here because I refuse to let silence win." A man in a sheriff's uniform rose in the back, hand resting on his belt. "Ma'am, do you have proof of these allegations?" Elise nodded. "It's been released to the public. Multiple independent organizations are reviewing it. But I came here tonight not just to accuse, but to ask for protection. Not just for me. For anyone who speaks up next." Carter stood near the exits, watching everyone, Jade sat in the second row, legs swinging, eyes wide. Rex lay at her feet, unmoving but vigilant. The sheriff walked down the aisle slowly. "I'm going to ask you to come with me, Miss Raymond, for your safety and ours." "Am I under arrest?" "No, ma'am. I'm taking you to the regional DOJ field office. They've already called, and frankly, I think they want to hear your story. Will I be safe there? From what I've read in that file you uploaded?" The sheriff paused. "Probably not. But I'll walk in with you." Elise looked to Carter. He nodded. She bent down, kissed Jade's forehead. "I'll see you again, my brave girl." Jade hugged her tight. "Promise?" "With all my heart." She rose, met Carter's gaze. "If they take me out on the way—" "They won't," Carter said. "Not tonight. The town's watching now." As the sheriff led her out, 2 federal SUVs parked outside the hall, but no one drew a weapon. No orders were barked. The officers simply opened the door and let her in. Before it shut, Elise turned and waved. Then the car rolled away into the night. Back inside, silence held for several moments. Then a voice from the back, an older woman with silver hair and a cane, stood and said, "She's brave." Another said, "She's right." Then applause. Not thunderous, but real. Carter closed his eyes. The story wasn't over, but something had shifted. Not just in the town, in the fight. The silence had cracked, and that was how revolutions always began. Not with gunfire, but with truth spoken out loud, by someone who refused to be afraid. 3 days after the town hall, Carter stood in front of the old diner where he and Jade used to share Sunday pancakes before the world shifted beneath their feet. The window still bore the faded decal of a smiling sun, and the same waitress with silver curls still greeted him with a nod, though this time with eyes full of something deeper: respect, perhaps, or worry. "Coffee?" she asked. He nodded. Jade sat quietly beside him, coloring in a dog-shaped maze with a broken red crayon. Rex dozed under the table, twitching now and then at phantom squirrels. The world had seen Elise's testimony. It had gone viral, been dissected on primetime news, and spun 1,000 different ways. But to Carter, none of that mattered unless she was safe, and he hadn't heard from her since she was taken. Across the street, an unmarked car idled. They didn't hide it anymore. Men in government-issue coats and expressionless sunglasses took turns watching him. Carter had gone from janitor to liability. The waitress poured his coffee with a sigh. "World's lost its damn mind," she said softly. "Used to be you told the truth. People called you brave. Now they call you dangerous." Carter looked up. "She told the truth. That makes her more dangerous than a bomb." The waitress hesitated. "My nephew's in the guard. He says there's movement out near the northern training facility. Lots of quiet flights. Night drills. Not standard." Carter's stomach turned. "Thanks." She gave a knowing nod and walked away. That night, Carter sat on the back porch, staring at the stars through the bare branches. Jade was asleep inside, Rex curled beside her bed. The wind whispered like a voice he used to know his father's, maybe. He thought of Elisa's last words, "If they take me out," and his gut twisted. The silence wasn't just quiet now, it was heavy, calculated. Suddenly, Rex bolted upright, ears perked. A second later, Carter heard it too, a soft tapping, like fingernails on wood. He reached for the small revolver he'd hidden under the grill. "Easy," came a voice from the shadows. A silhouette emerged, small, hunched, female. Then a flashlight flicked on and he saw her face. Martha Simmons, retired postal worker, 73 years old and known in town for her pies and opinions. "They're moving her tonight," she said. "What?" Carter stepped forward. "Elise, they're transferring her to a black site. Quietly. No press, no phone calls. Gone." Carter's heart pounded. "How do you know this?" Martha looked over her shoulder. "My niece works admin for the DOJ. She saw the file. She risked everything to get word to me. I thought you'd want to know." He ran a hand over his face. "Where?" "Somewhere near the border. I couldn't get exact coordinates, but she'll be gone before dawn." Carter didn't hesitate. He packed Jade a bag, left her with the waitress at the diner. "Just for a night, I'll be back, promise." Then returned to the house. Rex paced at the door, already sensing the urgency. Carter grabbed his old army satchel, loaded it with emergency supplies, and took off down the highway in his truck, tires slicing through gravel and moonlight. The roads narrowed as he moved closer to the military region outside county lines. Every mile felt like a countdown. His thoughts raced. What if he was too late? What if this was a trap? But deeper than the fear was something louder. Duty. Not to a flag, to a person, to the truth. Rex sat alert in the passenger seat, nose twitching, eyes scanning the dark. They reached a fork near an abandoned ranger station. Carter killed the engine and grabbed the binoculars. Down the ridge, camouflaged by pine and fog, stood a small airstrip lit only by floodlights and military-grade silence. 2 SUVs, 1 transport truck, and a jet that didn't belong to any commercial line. Men in tactical gear moved with urgency but no sense of alarm. They weren't expecting visitors. Carter pulled back into the trees, parked, and checked the pack. A drone with night vision, wire cutters, a flashlight with red lens, and 2 encrypted radios gifts from Elise before her surrender. "Don't trust the system," she'd said. "Trust the tools." He released the drone and watched through the feed. Inside the truck, a woman sat with her hands cuffed, head down. 2 armed guards. 1 outside, smoking. 1 inside. Carter keyed the radio. Eyes on. Extraction Plan Alpha. Rex barked softly, almost in affirmation. They moved through the underbrush like they were born in it. Carter bypassed the outer gate using a storm culvert. Rex followed, silent as wind. At the truck's blind side, Carter popped the lock on the back door. 1 breath, 2, then he flung the door open. The guard inside raised his weapon too slow. Carter slammed the butt of his flashlight into the man's temple. Elise looked up, stunned. "Carter? Shh. We've got 5 minutes. He cut her restraints. "Can you walk?" "Yes, but they'll shoot to kill if they see me run." "Then we don't let them see." They slipped out the back, into the shadows. Carter threw a smoke canister toward the front of the vehicle. Chaos erupted, shouts, lights flaring, the other guard coughing and firing into the fog. Carter and Elise darted into the trees. But then a shot rang out and Rex yelped. Carter spun. The dog limped, leg grazed but still standing. "Rex, go!" he shouted. Rex didn't move. Elise knelt beside him, hand trembling. "We need to stop the bleeding." "No time," Carter said, hoisting Rex into his arms. "We get to the truck, then patch him up." They ran, every muscle screaming, every second a gamble. Back at the ranger station, Carter threw open the truck door and helped Elise inside. He laid Rex across the back seat, pressing gauze to the wound. "It's not deep," Elise said. "We'll save him." Carter slammed the door, started the engine, and peeled out. Behind them, the airstrip dissolved into confusion, guards yelling into radios, the jet's lights flickering off. But no one followed. Not yet. They'd pulled it off, barely. "You came for me," Elise whispered, eyes glassy. "You really came." Carter looked at her, hands gripping the wheel. "I wasn't about to let them erase you, not after everything." She placed her hand on his. "This isn't over." "No," Carter said. "But we're still writing the ending." And as the road stretched before them, flanked by stars and danger alike, it was clear they were no longer running. They were reclaiming the story one truth at a time. Under the cover of dawn, Carter's truck hummed down a forgotten logging road far from any satellite trace. Elise sat beside him, face pale but focused, while Rex rested in the back, a fresh bandage wrapped tight around his leg, eyes closed but ears still alert. The silence inside the cab was thick with things: unspoken grief, exhaustion, gratitude, and the weight of what lay ahead. Carter glanced at Elise. "Where do we go now?" She didn't hesitate. "Bozeman. There's someone I trust, a veteran journalist, not mainstream, but respected. If we get the files to him, he'll blow it all open." Carter nodded slowly. "And you're sure he's not compromised?" Elise's voice lowered. "He helped my husband once when the system tried to bury his unit's wrongful death report. He paid a price for it, but he never backed down. He's one of the few who still believes truth matters." Bozeman was 6 hours away, and Carter knew they'd be hunted long before then. He changed plates at a gas station in a backwoods town and bought burner phones from a roadside vendor who never looked up from his crossword. They took side roads, avoiding highways and obvious surveillance. Elise used her laptop sparingly, shielding the screen with aluminum mesh between uses to block potential tracking. She reviewed the files they'd stolen: government memos, signed orders, footage of human experimentation under the guise of vaccine resilience testing. It was horrifying. It was undeniable. and it was enough to ruin careers, ignite investigations, maybe even change the way the country saw itself. "This isn't just about us anymore," Elise murmured, scrolling through footage of lab workers discarding failed test subjects. "This is about every person who trusted the system to protect them." Carter glanced at her. "You think people will care?" She turned, eyes fierce. "If they don't, then we've already lost more than we thought." An hour outside Bozeman, Carter noticed the black SUV in the rearview mirror. No headlights, matching every turn. His jaw clenched. "We're not alone." Elise glanced back. "Window tint too dark. Could be DHS." "Or worse," Carter muttered. He took a sudden left into a wooded fire trail, bouncing through ruts and brush. The SUV followed. Rex stirred in the back, his low growl a confirmation. "Hold on," Carter said, jerking the wheel. They careened off the path, crashing through brush, then burst into a clearing where an old ranger tower stood abandoned. Carter slammed the brakes. "Out! Now!" They grabbed the bags, ran for the tower. The SUV screeched to a halt just beyond the trees, and doors opened 4 men, all armed, moving with military precision. Elise and Carter climbed the narrow metal staircase as bullets whizzed past. Carter pulled his handgun, fired twice, grazing one attacker and sending the others into temporary cover. Inside the tower, they barricaded the trapdoor and scanned for options. "We won't hold long here," Elise said, panting. Carter checked the radio. "No signal. They're jamming us." "Then we make them come to us," she said. She opened her laptop, plugged in a USB key, marked only with a silver X. "Failsafe protocol. If I'm ever captured or in mortal danger, this deploys everything to every independent media outlet I've got cached." "Why didn't you use it before?" Carter asked. "Because once I do, they'll come harder. Not just for me, for anyone connected to me." Carter touched her hand gently. "Then we give it all now. No more waiting." She hit execute. His one. A progress bar loaded. 90 seconds. 60. Outside, the attackers regrouped, preparing a ladder. "Incoming," Carter muttered. He tossed a flashbang from the pack and fired another shot. The detonation slowed them, but not enough. Rex barked sharply, standing between Elise and the trapdoor, tail stiff, body tense despite the injury. Then the signal bar blinked green. "Upload complete," Elise whispered. "It's out." A second later, a sharp cracking sound echoed through the forest, a helicopter above, with searchlights sweeping across the clearing. Another followed, then a third. "You didn't just send files, did you?" Carter asked. "No," she said. "I sent coordinates. This place now." The attackers panicked. Some ran back to the SUV, but it was too late. The first tactical team fast roped down from the nearest chopper, identifying themselves as FBI Internal Affairs. "Federal agents, drop your weapons." The ambushers didn't comply until they were forcibly subdued. A tall woman in black tactical gear approached the tower. "Agent Voss, Iowa Division. We received a priority alert with coded clearance from your ID, Miss Archer. Are you both safe?" Elise nodded, voice hoarse. "As safe as we'll ever be." Carter descended first, then helped Elise and Rex down. The forest lit up with activity medics, analysts, command vehicles materializing from the woods like ghosts. Elise's laptop was sealed and secured in a forensic bag. Carter stepped aside to smoke a cigarette he hadn't touched in 2 years. Voss approached him. "We've seen what you uploaded. It's already been mirrored by whistleblower platforms. Congress can't ignore this." "They'll try," Carter said flatly. "Then we make it impossible." Voss looked at him. "What you did, what she did, it matters." He didn't answer. He just watched the treetops sway in the morning wind, as if waiting for something else to crash down. Elise joined him, bandaged hand tucked in his. "It started," she said. "The real part." Carter nodded. "I know." She looked at him. "If you want to walk away." "No," he said firmly. "You said this story matters, so I'm staying until it's finished." And as they stood among flashing lights and the smell of pine and justice, it was clear the fight wasn't over. But for the first time, they weren't alone. The hotel room in D.C. was sparse 2 beds, a desk, and a window that overlooked the gray spine of a government building. Carter stood at the window with a cup of burnt coffee in hand, watching a delivery truck idle below. The world had shifted since the forest. News outlets exploded with headlines. Whistleblower files, leaked lab reports, and shocking footage replayed across every major channel. Protesters gathered in multiple cities. Hearings were being scheduled, and yet Carter couldn't shake the sense that something was still unfinished. "You haven't slept," Elise said softly behind him. She wore a hoodie and jeans, blending in with the millions of Americans walking the Capitol, but her presence still carried the weight of someone who had nearly died for the truth. "Sleep feels premature," he replied. She handed him a file folder. "Then maybe this will help. Voss got it to me this morning. One of the labs mentioned in the documents they scrubbed their facility in Montana, but a second location was overlooked, a warehouse in Baltimore. It's the missing link." Carter flipped through the contents: photos, floor plans, shipment logs, security rosters. "And you think they left something behind?" "I think they got cocky," Elise replied. "They thought once we were exposed, we'd back down." She looked him in the eye. "I don't back down, Carter. Not anymore." They made it to Baltimore by dusk, parking several blocks away from the waterfront district. The air was thick with salt and engine oil. The warehouse sat at the end of a crumbling pier, barely lit, no guards visible. "Too quiet," Carter muttered, loading his sidearm. Elise handed him a small earpiece. "Backup channel. Voss has agents on standby. If we don't check in by midnight, they come in." "Nice to have a plan B," he said, and they moved like shadows into the night. Inside, the warehouse smelled of bleach and electricity. Rows of crates were stamped with pharmaceutical company logos, all pristine on the outside. But beneath the lids they found horror. Specimen containers, vials of unregistered substances, video logs of clinical trials performed off-grid, with no patient consent. Names of patients crossed out, many with military IDs. "My God," Elise whispered, holding a photograph of a test subject who looked no older than 19. They were using soldiers, veterans, people they thought couldn't fight back. Carter clenched his fists. "We need proof. Not just pictures, something they can't erase." As if summoned by their urgency, a door creaked open at the far end of the warehouse. A figure stepped out, tall, tailored suit, flanked by 2 security guards. "Miss Archer," the man said, voice calm as poison. "You should have stayed buried." "Dr. Leon Barrett," Elise replied, her voice steel. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Carter recognized the name. Former government liaison for bio-research initiatives. Publicly disgraced, but clearly still active in the shadows. "What you've seen here is beyond your comprehension," Barrett said. "You think you're heroes, but all you're doing is destabilizing a system that protects people from truths they aren't ready to face." "No," Carter said, stepping forward. "What you're doing is playing God and hiding behind flags and titles to justify it," Barrett sneered. "And what are you, Mr. Carter? A janitor? A nobody with a broken life now playing knight?" Carter didn't flinch. "I'm a father. I'm a veteran. And I'm a man who still believes in right and wrong." Barrett signaled to the guards. "You won't leave here alive." But before the men could move, a sharp bark echoed through the rafters. Rex. Despite his injury, the dog leapt from a stack of crates, tackling one of the guards. The other spun, gun raised only for Elise to slam him with a metal clipboard she'd grabbed earlier. Carter rushed Barrett, wrestling him to the ground. Barrett fought hard, trained, ruthless, but Carter's rage was older, deeper, born of betrayal, buried friends, and years of silence. "You think we're afraid of you?" Barrett spat. "I've worked with senators. I've buried files deeper than your conscience could reach." Carter pinned him. "Then it's time to dig them up." Within moments, the warehouse flooded with light. FBI agents burst through every entrance, Voss at the front. "Hands in the air, all of you." Barrett froze. Carter stepped back. Elise presented the files they'd recovered. "This," she said to Voss, "ties it all together." Barrett tried to speak, but Voss cut him off. "We've got audio, video, testimony. You're done." Hours later, at a nearby precinct, Carter watched as Barrett was led into custody. Elise sat beside him, a quiet strength in her posture. "He'll talk," she said, "to save himself, and when he does, the rest will fall like dominoes." Carter nodded slowly. "You did it." She looked at him, eyes soft. "We did it." For the first time in weeks, Carter allowed himself to exhale. Not because the fight was over, but because now, finally, they had a shot at winning. Just before sunrise, they stepped outside. Rex limped beside them, tail wagging. In the distance, the Capitol dome glowed against the morning sky. "You think people will remember this?" Carter asked. Elise smiled. "They better. We paid enough for it." He took her hand. "Then let's make sure they never forget." And together, beneath the weight of everything they'd endured, they walked into the light, ready for whatever came next. 3 months had passed since the Baltimore raid. The world had shifted in ways no one fully understood yet. Congressional hearings dominated every news cycle. The FBI continued to unearth layers of corruption buried deep within the medical military-industrial complex, and Carter found himself at the center of a quiet storm he never asked to be part of. He sat on the porch of a modest 2-story house in rural Virginia, a cup of black coffee in one hand and Rex's head resting on his knee. The morning sun stretched across the dew-covered field, illuminating a piece he still didn't quite trust. "You still watch the horizon like you're expecting gunfire," Elise said, stepping outside with 2 mugs and her long hair tied back. She handed him a fresh cup and sat beside him. "Old habits," he muttered. "Or maybe I just know better," Elise smirked. "We're off the grid now, Carter. Barrett's in a federal holding cell, most of the labs have been shut down, and the public finally gives a damn. You did it." "We did it," he corrected, then added. "But justice isn't a finish line. It's a treadmill. The second you step off it, someone else steps on to undo it all." Elise leaned her shoulder against his. "Then maybe we take turns staying on it. At least now we're not running alone." Inside the house, Jade was finishing a puzzle with one of the neighbor's kids. She laughed, unforced, full-bellied, the kind of sound that had been missing from Carter's life for too long. Watching her now, he felt that protective ache all over again. Rex got up from his side and trotted over to the children, flopping between them with a grunt of contentment. "You ever think about going back?" Elise asked gently. "To the city. To your old life." Carter shook his head. "That life died with who I used to be. I think this is where I'm supposed to be now, doing the quiet work, raising Jade right, letting Rex finally retire." She smiled. "You deserve that. You all do." Later that afternoon, they took a walk down to the river trail. Carter carried a fishing rod slung over his shoulder. Jade held a tackle box, and Elise had a notebook she rarely let out of her sight. She'd started writing again, memoirs, reports, fragments of truth the media hadn't caught. "Do you think people are ready to hear the rest of it?" she asked as they sat by the bank. Carter tied a lure to the end of the line. "Some are, some never will be, but that's not why you tell the story." He looked up. "You tell it because someone out there is still in the dark, and they deserve a crack of light." Elise scribbled something quickly, then paused. "You know what Voss told me last week? Barrett's trial will be public, televised. She wants me to testify first." "You will," Carter said. "And when you do, speak for all of them. The ones who didn't make it. The ones who couldn't speak for themselves." She nodded, misty-eyed. "And for him, for James." They sat in silence for a while, the river whispering old secrets. Carter cast the line and watched the bobber settle on the water's surface. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he felt steady. Evening brought them back home, and as Jade went upstairs for bed, Elise stood by the window staring at the stars. "Do you think they'll ever really stop?" she asked. "The people behind all this, the ones we haven't found yet." Carter stood behind her. "Number, because power's a drug, and someone will always be willing to kill for the last vial. But now they know there are people who'll fight back." She turned to face him. "Do you ever regret opening that car door that night?" He chuckled softly. "Every damn day, and I'd do it again every time." They embraced no fanfare, just warmth, grounding. 2 broken lives mended not by revenge but by choice. A week later, they traveled back to D.C. for the trial. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Survivors, activists, journalists, all eyes were on the witness stand. Elise stepped up, wearing a simple navy suit, no makeup, her scars visible and unapologetic. She took a breath and began. Her testimony lasted nearly 2 hours. She detailed the cover-ups, the human testing, the coded communications between departments that allowed it all to thrive. She named names. She handed over evidence. When she spoke about the night Carter found her, the room went silent. Not a cough, not a whisper, just her voice, steady and clear, breaking through decades of deception. When she finished, she looked at the gallery. "Justice isn't about vengeance, It's about truth, and truth needs people willing to stand in the fire for it. I'm one of them, and I'm not alone anymore. Carter sat with Jade in the gallery, his hand holding hers. When Elise returned to her seat, Jade whispered, "She's really brave, isn't she?" Carter nodded. "Yeah, she is." That night, they walked out of the courthouse as reporters shouted their names, lights flashing like fireworks. But they didn't stop for questions. They walked straight through the crowd, Rex guiding their steps like a silent guardian. The world would talk, the system would grind on. There would be appeals and delays and deals struck behind closed doors. But something had changed. A fault line had opened, and through it, the truth had poured. Back home, Carter hung a photograph in their hallway. It showed James Archer in uniform beside Rex, both younger, brighter, unburdened. Below it, a small plaque read, "Service is not a rank, it's a choice." One night, as Carter tucked Jade in, she asked, "Do you think one person can change the world?" He looked at her and said, "I think one person can light a fire. And if they're lucky, that fire becomes a beacon." She smiled sleepily. "I'm going to be a beacon someday." He kissed her forehead. "You already are." Outside, the wind moved through the trees like an old lullaby. And for the first time in a long time, the silence wasn't heavy, it was healing. They had survived. They had spoken. And now, they would live. The story reminds us that justice often begins in silence, in the quiet decisions made by ordinary people who refuse to look away. It teaches that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's the quiet persistence of a single father, a wounded woman, and a loyal dog who choose to do what's right even when no one's watching. Ultimately, it's a testament to the power of truth, the resilience of the human spirit, and the belief that even in a broken system, decency can still rise and light, once ignited, can never be put out.